I thought it was a dream at first, the kind where something feels off but not enough to jolt you awake. But I was already sitting up in bed, my shirt damp with sweat, and I couldn't figure out why I was awake. The room was pitch black. My fan was off, which was weird because I always sleep with it on low. It hums just enough to block out noise from the street. I waited, listening. It took a full minute before I realized something wasn't right. No ticking from the wall clock. No fridge buzzing from the kitchen. Not even the faint hiss of air through the heater vent. The silence was so total that I could hear a faint pulse inside my head, like the sound your ears make when you're underwater. I live alone. Just me and my two gerbils, Milo and Crumb. They're usually skittering around or chewing on their bedding by this hour. But tonight, nothing. I leaned over the edge of the bed to peek at their cage on the floor. They were sitting completely still, side by side, eyes wide open, both facing the same direction, toward the door. It didn't scare me at first. I just thought maybe they were startled by something. I whispered, "You two okay?" and reached to slide my phone off the charger. The screen lit up before I touched it, and the sound that came out of it, God, it was like a screech made of TV static but warped and twisted. The kind of sound that makes your body pull back even if your brain doesn't know why yet. I fumbled the phone. It buzzed so hard in my hand it almost flew out. The screen showed a bright red alert message covering everything. But it didn't look like any normal emergency alert I'd ever seen. No FEMA logo, no timestamp, no option to dismiss it. Just this message in sharp block letters that looked like they'd been typed in a rush. Emergency alert. Remain indoors. Do not look outside. Do not use screens or mirrors. Do not engage with any audio sources. Stay low. Stay silent. Threat level extreme. I stared at it, still holding my breath. I tried tapping the screen, but nothing worked. Not the power button, not the volume buttons. I couldn't close it. It just sat there in my hand, glowing red like a warning light. Then, for the first time, I noticed how cold the room had gotten. Not like normal cold. This was the kind that soaks into your skin. The kind that feels like something is drawing the heat out of you instead of the air just being chilly. The gerbils were still frozen, motionless, and I was getting this horrible feeling I was being watched. But not from inside the room, from outside. I moved to the hallway, every step soft, listening for anything, any sound that would explain the weird alert or the dead silence. My apartment is on the ground floor, one of 6 in a narrow complex on Sherman Street, just off the industrial park. I could usually hear trucks groaning past even at night. But tonight, not a sound. When I reached the kitchen, I froze. The microwave display was black. The digital clock on the stove, dead. My Wi-Fi router had a single red light flashing, over and over, like it was trying to stay connected but couldn't. I didn't touch anything. My phone buzzed once more in my hand, just one short pulse, and then shut itself off completely. The silence returned, and then I heard it, not from inside, from the yard, maybe 10 feet outside the window by the sink. A soft, scraping sound, slow, deliberate, like someone dragging something across the outside of the building, not scratching, more like dragging wet rope over concrete. I stepped back, bumping into the fridge with my hip. The alert's message repeated in my head. Do not look outside. I didn't. Instead, I backed away, turned down the hall, and quietly closed the bedroom door behind me. My mind was racing. I didn't know what was going on, but every part of me screamed that I shouldn't be near the windows. I crouched next to the gerbil cage and gently scooped them both into their travel box. Crumb twitched once, but didn't move much otherwise. That was almost scarier than the noise outside. I'd never seen them act like that before. I grabbed my jacket and remembered the old utility room behind the building. It was where the landlord kept cleaning supplies and breaker access. It had no windows, just a concrete floor and thick walls, probably meant for tornadoes or something years ago. I had the backup key from when I helped him clean out the basement 2 months ago. Still barefoot, I eased out my front door and shut it gently. The hallway outside my apartment was barely lit, just one emergency light above the exit. The rest of the place felt abandoned, like everyone else had left hours ago, or never existed. My skin prickled as I made my way down the back corridor. I was halfway there when I heard it again, closer this time, that scraping, longer, slower, like it was moving toward the back of the building. I didn't stop. I practically ran the last few feet, key in hand, and unlocked the utility room. Inside, the air smelled like concrete and bleach. I shut the door behind me and locked it from the inside. No light, just the glow from the backup bulb in the ceiling, dim and yellow. I sat on the cold floor, pulled the gerbils close to my chest and waited. No phone, no windows, no sound. Nothing except that feeling in the pit of my stomach that something had arrived, and it wasn't here for help. I don't know how long I sat there, back pressed against the wall, arms wrapped around the gerbil carrier like it was the only thing anchoring me to reality. The utility room was barely bigger than a walk-in closet, just concrete on all sides, with a rusted mop sink in one corner and a pile of cardboard boxes stacked up near the door. The overhead light buzzed faintly every few minutes, but didn't flicker. Just buzzed, like it was trying to make me remember that power still existed somewhere. Milo and Crumb hadn't moved much, but they were breathing now, small, shallow movements that I could feel through the plastic cage. That made me feel a little better. If they were sensing whatever was going on, and they weren't in that weird frozen state anymore, maybe the worst had passed. But I didn't believe it. Something was still wrong. I didn't hear the scraping anymore. Not from outside, at least. But now it felt like the wrongness had moved closer. Not in distance, in intensity. The kind of wrong that makes the hairs on your arms lift and your thoughts start looping over themselves. I couldn't get the alert out of my head. Do not use mirrors. Do not engage with audio sources. Stay low. Stay silent. It was that last line that bothered me the most. Stay low. Why low? Like it mattered how high I was off the ground? I found myself crouching deeper, resting my body weight into my heels without realizing it. The light above me buzzed again. This time, longer. It sounded like a warning. I looked up. Nothing had changed. Still yellow, still dim. But then the bulb started to dim, slowly, like it was breathing in reverse. I held my breath. The room didn't go dark completely, but the glow faded to the point where the corners of the space became shapes, not walls. I could see the boxes still. I could see the outline of the mop sink, but everything felt just slightly warped, like the angles were too sharp, like the corners had moved when I wasn't looking. Then a sound, inside the room. I jerked my head toward the door, but it wasn't coming from there. It was coming from above, a soft, papery flutter, like a moth brushing against a light bulb. Then another one, slightly louder, then another, right behind me. I turned, flashlight in hand, heart climbing into my throat. I didn't even remember grabbing it, but there it was, clutched white knuckle in my fist. I clicked it on. There was nothing there. Just the same stupid boxes, the cage beside me, and the wall I'd been leaning against. I kept the beam aimed into the corner behind me for a long time, waiting for something to move. But it didn't. Then the smell hit. Metallic. Wet. Burnt. Like the scent of something left inside a toaster too long, mixed with blood and bleach. I turned off the flashlight just in case. The alert had said to avoid light sources. I hadn't thought about flashlights at the time, but I wasn't taking chances now. I adjusted Milo and Crumb's cage on my lap and scooted backward until I was wedged into the back corner of the room, spine against the cold concrete, knees tucked up. The air was getting heavier. I didn't mean that in a dramatic way. I mean, it literally felt harder to breathe, like I was under a weighted blanket, and someone was pressing down on my lungs. I tried to stay quiet, to listen, but my ears were popping, like on an airplane, but sharper. And then, static. Very faint at first, but it was there. It wasn't from the light. It wasn't from a speaker or a radio. It was coming from behind the mop sink. A low hiss of static, broken up now and then by what sounded like clicking or tapping, like something trying to form a pattern. I kept still, too afraid to move, but my heart was racing. I had a sudden urge to talk, to say anything, even a whisper, just to prove I could. But the moment I opened my mouth, the static got louder. No joke, it reacted. I shut my mouth instantly, hand over my lips. It faded back down to a soft hiss. That's when I realized it wasn't just a sound. It was listening. Something out there, or in here, was reacting to noise. The alert hadn't been random. The rules weren't arbitrary. They were instructions. This wasn't a storm, or a gas leak, or anything explainable. Something was out there, and it was using sound, or the absence of it, to find people. I stayed like that, barely moving, breathing through my nose until the light above me blinked once. Then again, then shut off completely. Darkness. Total, real darkness. The kind that erases all dimensions. My body tightened up like it was trying to fold in on itself. I had never been afraid of the dark before. But this wasn't just lights out. This was something is here with you and you cannot see it. Then I heard a breath, right next to my ear. Not mine, not imagined. A real slow inhale. I turned the flashlight on, fast, not even caring about the alert anymore. The beam hit the mop sink, the wall, my own legs, nothing else. But the breath didn't stop. It wasn't just beside me, it was above me now. I tilted the flashlight up, slow, scared, and caught a glimpse of something. I don't know what it was exactly. It didn't have a shape in the normal way, just the suggestion of one, like the air above me had thickened and part of it was bending the light the wrong way. It shimmered faintly, not reflective, but glossy, the way oil floats on water, and it was moving, very, very slowly. I shut the flashlight off immediately. I pressed myself into the corner and didn't move. I didn't breathe. I let my eyes adjust to the dark, even though they were useless now. The breathing stopped. The static was gone. Everything was still. I stayed frozen like that for a long time, maybe 20 minutes, maybe longer. My phone hadn't turned back on and I had no clock. But slowly the weight in the air began to lift. The light overhead didn't come back on. Nothing powered up again. But something let go. I could feel it, like the air had given me permission to exist again. The emergency alert wasn't lying. There was something out there that responded to sound, to movement, to attention, and it wasn't human. I must have sat there in the dark for at least another hour, if not more. I don't really know. Time didn't move in that room the way it does normally. It wasn't just quiet. It was like the world outside had stopped spinning altogether, like whatever was happening had unplugged me from everything familiar, and I was just floating in a pocket of stillness, where the usual rules didn't apply. The only sound was my breathing, and the soft rustle of Milo and Crumb shifting in their carrier. They were still alive, at least. I could hear their tiny claws scratch the plastic now and then, quiet and cautious, like even they knew they were somewhere they shouldn't be. Eventually, I got brave enough to risk moving. Just a little. My back had gone stiff from sitting against the cold concrete for so long, and one of my legs had completely lost feeling. I stretched slowly, every motion deliberate and slow, trying not to make any sudden noises. The air still felt wrong, Less heavy now, but not normal. It was like a storm had passed through and left some invisible residue behind. I thought about turning the flashlight back on, but I didn't. Not after what happened last time. The dark was terrifying, sure, but at least it didn't seem to react. The light, though, whatever that shimmer had been, it hadn't liked the beam. Or maybe it had liked it, which was worse. My phone still hadn't powered back on, but I didn't bother checking it again. I had a weird feeling that even if I'd brought another phone or device, it wouldn't have made a difference. Whatever was happening, it wasn't a matter of signal or battery. It was like the very idea of communication had been hijacked. I started thinking about the alert again. Do not look outside. Do not use reflections. Stay low. Stay silent. The reflection part had stuck with me. Why reflections? Then I remembered the metal sink behind me. I turned toward it slowly and squinted at the basin. I couldn't see my reflection. The room was too dark, but the shape of it was there. The curve of the bowl, catching what little ambient light there was. And for a second, just 1 second, I thought I saw something move across it. Not my reflection, something else. A blur. A suggestion of movement that didn't belong to me. I blinked hard and looked again, but it was gone. I didn't want to look anymore. I pulled the carrier tighter and shifted to the opposite side of the room, putting my back to the sink. My hands were sweaty and stiff. The gerbils squeaked softly, like they could feel my nerves vibrating through the plastic. Then the room got colder again. Not the whole thing, just the air right above me. I felt it move, slowly, like a draft coming down from the ceiling, even though there were no vents or openings there. It wasn't air so much as pressure, like a presence brushing against the top of my head. I clenched my jaw and shut my eyes. And then, clear as anything, I heard it, my voice, whispering my name. But it wasn't coming from outside the door. It wasn't in my head either. It was coming from the sink. I knew it before I opened my eyes. My voice, low and quiet, was echoing back at me, just a whisper. Lena. It was my voice, but wrong. Like it had been slowed down and stripped of meaning, like it had been passed through water and static. I didn't say anything. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. And eventually, it stopped. Whatever it was trying to draw me out, or maybe get me to make a sound. I thought again about how the static had responded when I opened my mouth earlier. This thing, this presence, it heard in ways we didn't understand. Not with ears, not even with sound, maybe, but through intention, through the idea of noise. I needed to get out of the utility room. I didn't feel safer anymore. I felt like I was being held here, like the room had gone from shelter to trap, and I was overstaying my welcome. I waited another 10 minutes, maybe more, and then finally unlocked the door. The hallway was empty. I moved out fast, but careful, holding the gerbils close, feet light on the tile. The air outside the room felt thinner now, still cold, still tense, but not charged the way it had been before, like whatever had been there had moved on, or moved through. My apartment door was still shut. I hesitated before going back inside, but I had nowhere else to go. No phone, no working electronics, no way to call anyone. So I opened the door slowly and stepped inside. It was dead silent. Not the same kind of silence as before. This was the aftermath kind, the kind of quiet that happens after a loud crash, when you're waiting to see what's broken. I checked the microwave. Still dead. Same with the stove clock. I glanced at the living room window but didn't go near it. The blinds were down, but I couldn't risk it. I went back into my bedroom, set the gerbils on the desk, and sat on the edge of the bed. My body ached. My thoughts felt jumbled, like puzzle pieces that had been bent and wouldn't fit right anymore. And then, my phone lit up. just a little glow from under my pillow. I stared at it for a long time before picking it up. No sound, no vibration. The screen showed one new notification. Not a message, not a call, just another alert. This one was short. Follow-up alert, 6:02 a.m., Bloomfield District, primary event subsiding. Remain indoors until 7 a.m. Do not use screens or audio devices. Stay silent. Cleanup is underway. Do not acknowledge unfamiliar voices. That last line. It chilled me, because whatever I'd heard in that sink, whatever had whispered my name, wasn't random. It wasn't an accident. It was testing me. And it would probably try again. I didn't turn the phone off. I just set it face down on the nightstand and stared at the wall for a long time. The glow from the alert dimmed the room in red for a few minutes before fading out again, like it was tired. My eyes stayed open, but I wasn't seeing anything. My brain was too busy trying to make sense of what cleanup is underway meant, or how any of this had happened without warning. I should have called someone hours ago. But the truth is, I hadn't even tried. It wasn't just about the phone not working earlier. It was something deeper, like my body didn't want me reaching out, like part of me already knew no one would answer. The alert's last line kept repeating in my head over and over. Do not acknowledge unfamiliar voices. I didn't know what that meant exactly, but I remembered hearing myself in the sink. Not just a voice. My voice whispering my name like a question it already knew the answer to. And now, with the lights still off and the apartment still wrapped in that thick quiet, I was terrified that if anyone called out from outside the door, even if it sounded like a neighbor or a friend, I wouldn't know if it was real. I sat in silence until I noticed something strange. The rats were acting normal again. Milo was chewing on a tissue roll, and Crumb had started burrowing in the bedding like he always did. The sudden return to normalcy was jarring. I stood up slowly and leaned in to watch them. Nothing about their movements seemed tense anymore. No freezing, no staring at corners. Just rats being rats. It should have made me feel better. But it didn't. Because if things were returning to normal, it meant this had happened before. Like a weather pattern. Something that rolled through and passed on, leaving the surface unchanged but shaking everything underneath. I walked into the kitchen, flashlight in hand, careful to keep the beam pointed down. I didn't dare turn on any switches. The microwave display was still blank. I opened the fridge. Nothing. Not even a hum. The food inside felt lukewarm. Electricity was still off, but the building wasn't making noise either. Not even pipes ticking from cooling off. The air just sat heavy in the space like it didn't want to move. I checked the time on my wristwatch. 6:29 a.m. 30 more minutes, supposedly. I thought about the words, cleanup is underway. I pictured hazmat suits, radiation detectors, military vans idling in parking lots. But I knew that wasn't what this was. Whatever needed cleaning up wasn't something you could scrub or contain. This was something other. I walked slowly to the living room and stood in the center, not near the windows, just listening. At first, nothing. Then, so faint I could have imagined it. I heard a sound from somewhere outside the building. Not a vehicle, not footsteps. A tone, almost musical. It rang for maybe 4 seconds. A single echoing note, low and soft, like someone blowing across the mouth of a glass bottle. It stopped abruptly. Then, silence again. I waited. No repeat. I stayed there, still, for at least 5 minutes, but there was nothing more. I couldn't tell where the sound had come from. The direction didn't make sense. It seemed to pass through the walls, not around them. The temperature in the apartment hadn't changed, but my skin broke into goosebumps. There's something about a sound you can't place, even when it's harmless, that makes your mind spiral. It's the mystery of it that gnaws at you, not the volume. That's when I heard a knock, not loud, just 2 light taps on my front door. I froze. There it was again. Knock, knock. No voice, no footsteps before or after. I backed away one step, then another, until I was against the hallway wall. Then I heard it. A voice. Female. Calm. Close. Lena? You okay? It sounded like my neighbor, Shelby. Same pitch, same speech pattern. We'd only talked a few times in passing, but I remembered her voice from the stairwell conversations. But something was wrong. Shelby had left town the day before yesterday. I saw her packing her car. Said she was driving to her sister's place outside Spokane. Another knock, slower this time, and the voice again. It's just me. Are you all right? No movement, no shadow under the door. I didn't answer. I didn't move. My breathing got shallow again. That weight returned, the same pressure I felt back in the utility room. I pressed my back harder to the wall and focused on not reacting. I don't know how I knew, but I knew if I said anything, even a whisper, it would hear me. Then came the part that chilled me most. The voice changed, just a little. Same tone, same volume, but the pitch shifted half a step lower, like whatever, was imitating Shelby, hadn't nailed it perfectly the second time. Lena, it's cold out here. Please let me in. I wanted to scream, not out of panic, but because something about that small vocal slip made it real. It confirmed what I'd been dreading. It wasn't her. I slowly slid down the wall, crouched low like the alert said, and sat there in the hallway, hand clamped over my mouth. No more knocks came. No more voice. Just silence. I waited 10 more minutes before crawling back into the bedroom. The rats had gone to sleep again. Both of them burrowed deep into the bedding, relaxed and twitching in their dreams like nothing had happened. The clock on my watch clicked over. 6:59 a.m. I stared at it. Then the screen on my dead phone suddenly lit up again, like someone had flipped a switch in another room. No sound, no buzz, just the screen back on, glowing dim white. A new alert popped up. Final notice. 7 a.m. Bloomfield District. Critical period has ended. Remain indoors for the next 3 hours. Avoid unfamiliar individuals. Do not mention this event. Do not investigate further. If symptoms occur, seek no treatment. Normal conditions resumed. No agency name. No way to reply. Just the words. I set the phone down, walked slowly back to my room and sat on the edge of my bed. Outside, a bird chirped. One, then two more. Morning sounds. Like nothing had happened at all. But I knew. Something had happened. And it knew I knew. I didn't go near the windows that morning, even after the sun came up and the apartment filled with that soft orange light that usually makes everything feel a little safer. I stayed where I was, sitting on the edge of the bed, hands folded like I was waiting to be called in for something. I didn't check the news. I didn't text anyone. I didn't even feed the gerbils right away. I just sat there, replaying everything in my head. The alert, the noise, the cold, the whisper in my voice, the thing pretending to be Shelby, the static that listened, and that final alert. Do not mention this event. Seek no treatment. Normal conditions resumed. That one stuck with me in the worst way, not just because of the eerie wording, but because it sounded final. Not like it was over, like it was being wiped, like whoever or whatever was behind this didn't want it remembered. By 8 a.m., the fridge started humming again. The microwave reset itself with 12:00 blinking steadily. My Wi-Fi router flashed green like nothing had ever happened. I tested the lights. They worked. So did my phone. No record of the alerts, though. No notifications, no history. The screen was completely clean, like someone had scrubbed it while I slept. I texted my friend Hannah just to see if she'd respond. Something normal. You up yet? Did the power go out where you are?" She replied almost instantly, "Nope, everything's fine here. Why?" Fine. Just like that. Like nothing had happened. I wanted to ask if she'd gotten any alerts, or if anything weird had happened overnight, but I hesitated. That warning, "Do not mention this event," kept ringing in my head. What if saying it out loud made it worse? What if it brought it back? I just replied, "Never mind." Must have been a local thing. The gerbils were acting like themselves again, nosing around for breakfast, so I fed them and checked their water. I kept watching them closely, trying to see if they'd show any sign of whatever had come over them during the night. But there was nothing. No more freezing. No staring into corners. No twitchy behavior. Just normal little rodents doing rodent things. It was comforting and creepy all at once. Like they remembered none of it. Like it had all been scrubbed from their minds the same way my phone had been scrubbed of the alerts. That was when I started to wonder if this had happened before. Not just to me, but to other people. Maybe even right here. Maybe this was a pattern. Something that came and went, like a glitch in reality. And everyone who lived through it just got reset. Told to stay quiet. Told to pretend. Or maybe some people didn't live through it. That thought made my stomach tighten. I remembered the voice outside my door, the fake Shelby, and wondered if anyone in my building had answered a knock. If they had opened a door, if they had spoken back, if they had been taken. I went into the hallway a little after 9, just to see if anyone else was moving around. Normally by then, you'd hear doors opening, shoes on the stairs, people heading out to work or school. But it was quiet. Not eerie quiet like before, just unusually still. I walked down to the mailboxes. A few envelopes had been shoved into mine, even though the mail carrier didn't come until late afternoon. Weird, but I didn't touch them. When I passed Shelby's door, I paused. The hallway light above her unit flickered faintly. Not like it was broken. More like it didn't know what kind of lighting it was supposed to give off. Like the bulb itself had forgotten its job. I knocked once. No answer. I waited a moment, then leaned in and tried to listen. Nothing. There was no smell, no noise, no movement behind the door. I didn't knock again. On my way back, I noticed something I hadn't seen the night before. Something that might have been new, or maybe it had been there, and I just missed it because of everything going on. Near the back exit, taped to the inside of the window, was a plain white sheet of printer paper. No letterhead, no logo, just black text, clean and centered. Bloomfield Community Safety Notice. If you experienced confusion, unusual behavior in animals, unexpected technical failure, or loss of memory between the hours of 2 a.m. and 7 a.m. on February 18th, please take the following steps. Do not discuss these events publicly. Do not attempt to document or share any recordings. Do not describe what you saw or heard. If approached by unfamiliar individuals, do not engage. Remain calm. Normal conditions have resumed. Thank you for your cooperation. That was it. No contact number. No QR code. No source. Just a flat, silent instruction to act like none of it happened. I took a photo of the notice, but when I checked my camera roll, it wasn't there. The image never saved, like it had never existed. I didn't try again. Instead, I went back inside, locked the door, and sat back on the bed. I opened my notes app and started typing everything that had happened. Every moment, every noise, the alert, the freezing air, the shimmer in the dark, the voice outside my door, the copy of my own voice in the sink, all of it. I told myself it was just for me, that I wasn't planning to post it, or share it, or email it to anyone. I just needed to remember, because if I didn't get it down, I was scared it would start to slip, the way dreams fade an hour after you wake up. I needed to anchor it to something. But halfway through writing, the app froze. Not crashed, just stopped responding. I could still scroll, still move the cursor. But I couldn't type another letter, like something had locked the document. And right before it froze, I noticed the last word I had typed had changed. I wrote, "I didn't open the door," but now it read, "I won't remember the door." I stared at it until my eyes stung. Then I powered the phone off and left it on the nightstand. This thing, whatever it was, didn't just want silence. It wanted absence. It wanted no record, no trail. And it was very good at erasing itself. I didn't sleep that day. Even though the world had gone back to its normal rhythm, the city humming along like nothing had happened, I couldn't close my eyes for more than a few seconds without seeing that alert screen burned into the dark behind my eyelids. Every time I blinked, I half expected to see red letters floating above me, telling me to stay quiet, stay low, stay inside. It wasn't just fear. It was something deeper, a feeling that I wasn't supposed to forget, even though every part of the world was now pretending it had never happened. I waited until late afternoon before I finally left the apartment. Not because I had somewhere to go, just because I had to prove to myself that I could. I bundled up, slipped the gerbils a bit of fruit and water, left a note on the door just in case, and stepped outside. The sky was clear, crisp and blue. No trace of anything strange, no static, no vibration, no distant tones. I walked around the block. There were people out. Dog walkers, someone pushing a stroller, a guy jogging by with headphones in like it was just another Thursday. I passed a couple of neighbors on the sidewalk. One nodded at me. The other looked like she didn't recognize me, even though I'd seen her checking her mail every day for a year. I wanted to stop someone, to ask, "Did you hear it too?" But the alert's last message kept replaying in my head. Do not mention this event. Do not investigate further. Normal conditions resumed. That wasn't a suggestion. It was enforced silence. Not just socially, mechanically. My phone hadn't kept the photo. My notes app changed my words. The alerts disappeared from my history. And no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't find a single mention of any outage, any unusual noise, or any explanation online. Nothing on Reddit, nothing on news sites, not even local Facebook groups. I searched Bloomfield outage, emergency alert 4 a.m., weird sounds overnight, and got nothing but standard weather updates and recycled memes. That's when I decided to go back to the place where it started. The utility room. I told myself I was just checking it, just making sure it was still there. But deep down, I knew I wanted answers. I needed something to confirm I wasn't losing it. The door was unlocked. Inside, everything looked normal. Cleaner than I remembered, actually. The mop sink had been scrubbed. The cardboard boxes were gone. The overhead light had been replaced. No flicker, no buzz. Just a sterile, steady white glow that made the whole room feel unfamiliar. Except for one thing. In the center of the concrete wall above the mop sink, someone had scraped a line of text into the cinder block with something sharp. It looked rushed, almost frantic, but the letters were still legible. Don't listen to your own voice. I stared at it, hand frozen halfway to my phone. I wanted to take a picture, but I knew already it wouldn't save, just like the alert, just like the hallway notice. Whatever was behind this didn't want to be recorded. It wanted presence without proof. That message confirmed something I'd only suspected until now. The phenomenon wasn't random. It had happened before. Someone else had hidden in this room. Someone else had heard their own voice coming back to them. And they hadn't made it. Or maybe they had. But not all of them. I backed out of the room and shut the door gently. There was no one in the hall. No strange shadows, no whispers. But I wasn't okay. Because now I had to know what it was. I spent the next few days digging, not on Google, but in the quiet places, web archives, obscure radio blogs, forums that hadn't been updated in years. I used the phrase that stuck in my head the most: do not acknowledge unfamiliar voices. And finally, I found something, buried in an old internet forum about shortwave radio oddities. There was a thread dated back to 2007, just 2 posts. The first one was titled, "Midnight Disruption, Artificial Voice Pattern?" The user described being woken up at 2:04 a.m. in rural Oregon by a buzzing tone and an emergency message that didn't match any known broadcaster. He said the message repeated 3 times and warned him to avoid sound-producing devices and reflections. He ignored it, turned on the TV to check the weather. Within minutes, he started hearing his mother's voice calling him from the backyard. The kicker? His mother had been dead for 4 years. The second post on the thread came 5 months later from another user. It simply said, "The same thing happened here. It's not a signal, it's a leak." That was the word that clicked everything into place for me. Not an attack, not a haunting, not a glitch. A leak, like a gas, like a substance, or a phenomenon that wasn't supposed to get in, but did. Something from somewhere else. A reality bleed, a temporary failure of the boundary between our world and something that runs on different rules, different logic. Maybe it only lasts a few hours. Maybe it always ends the same way. Silence, cleanup, forget. And maybe the only real mistake is trying to name it. Because once you try to describe it, once you look too close, you give it an opening. You turn your attention into an invitation, and it learns you. That's what the voices were, not ghosts, not hallucinations. Copies, sound-based approximations, tests, to see if we'd listen, to see if we'd answer, to see if we'd invite it all the way in. And I didn't. But I don't think that matters anymore, because this morning I found something new. On my bathroom mirror, written in fog even though I hadn't showered, "We remember you." That was it. No sound, no movement. Just a message waiting for me in the place I'd least expected. So now I sit here, typing this out by hand. Pen and paper. No apps, no electronics. I don't even know why exactly. Maybe no one will ever read this. Maybe it'll get scrubbed too. Maybe they'll find it and erase even me. But I'm leaving it under the floorboards anyway. Because if someone else finds it during the next event, whatever night the static returns and the glass starts whispering back, I want them to know, you're not crazy, you're not alone. And whatever it is, it knows you heard it.